Yes.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon. This is the Board of County Commissioners Board work session. It is Thursday, April 14th, 2022. It is 2:07 p.m. and this is set to go till 2:30 p.m. This is a hybrid meeting. It's in Building 1, room 280. And for public attendance, you may view on the Thurston County YouTube channel. I am Carolina Mejia. I am the chair of the board. Vice Chair Ty Menser sitting in the boardroom. Commissioner Gary Edwards will be joining us shortly, or is he excused?
I think he's just joining us right now via Zoom.
And Commissioner Gary Edwards via Zoom, County Manager Ramiro Chavez in the boardroom, and Scott Lindblad, our county engineer, as well as other staff members joining us via Zoom. The topic on today's agenda is on-call engineering and professional consultant services contracts. So who's starting off?
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Scott Lindblad, County Engineer. And in just a moment, I'll introduce a couple other staff we have. So we're here today to discuss with you the use of our on-call consultant roster that we've been using for the past few years. And Rick is going to give you a little presentation on it, but what I wanted to do is just give you one very brief and very recent example of how we've been using these on-call rosters to really help our community. You may recall the heavy rains we had the first week of January and the storms that were associated with that. But I clearly remember the afternoon of January 6th, which was a Thursday, we became aware of a potential slide on Sunrise Beach Road in the northwest part of the county. We sent staff out there to do an investigation about what the report was, but by the time we got out there, it was really too dark to tell what was going on, other than it looked like the hillside gave way below the road, but it was too dark to see the extent of the damage. So that same day, we reached out to one of our on-call consultants, and in less than 15 hours, we were able to set up a meeting, and the consultant was on site at first light on Friday with their geotechnical and engineers and geologists to help us assess the situation. They worked throughout that day and that whole weekend to begin immediately assessing the damage, look at the risk of further slides, and they started to develop a design for repair. Before the end of the month, we had enough information to get a contractor engaged to help with the repair. And when the rain finally slowed down and the hillside dried out a bit, we could actually begin that work. I'm very sensitive to slope stability issues on hillsides around the county, especially where, in this case, it served as the only access for about 50 homes. But the rapid response helped us preserve that access throughout the winter until the repair was completed just last month. So they were really instrumental in helping us get a big jump start on this by getting a lot of the contracting done at one fell swoop early on in the process. So with that, Rick is going to give you a little bit of a background on our use of them and kind of what we're asking at this point going forward. Rick?
Okay, thank you. And while I'm introducing myself, Sam, could you bring the presentation forward, please? My name is Rick Thomas. I am the manager of our project program management offices at Public Works. And I've got about 15 slides that we're going to go through to just give a background on the on-call consultant contracts. So go ahead to the next slide there, Sam. First thing I wanted to just do is a quick background of how this all started. Back in 2018, Public Works sent out a request for qualifications to get a list of contractors that would be available for lots of different types of consultant work. We received over 30 proposals from different consultants and down sourced and down selected to 10 different consultants that we ended up writing contracts with. These contracts were initial 2-year base bid contracts with extensions of up to 4 additional years. And one of the real advantages to having these contracts is that it's able to really help us with our projects that may have real specialty types of parts to it that our in-house design team may not have. And as Scott indicated, it also gives us a great flexibility to be able to get to services very quickly. The work itself is defined on task order basis, and I'll go through a couple of slides a little bit later to explain what that all means. But in general, this is a process that allows us to very quickly get to qualified consultants to help us meet our mission at Public Works. So next slide. I'm going to go through a couple of slides to talk about just the benefits of these on-call contracts. The first one I want to just point out is that this does allow us to produce more projects on a yearly basis than we've been able to do in the past, and therefore provide better service to our community. And just to remind you of the different areas, in Public Works, we have our transportation, our fish passage program, our stormwater, water and sewer utilities, parks and trails, and solid waste. So right there is quite a variety of different kinds of projects that we need to have professional type of consultants for. In addition, I just wanted to bring it to the attention of the board that I've also been working with our CPED group in regards to making these contracts available to help them with potential consultant support that could be needed in the permit processing within CPED as well. So it's one of the benefits. This next one down here is this contract does allow us to quickly obtain many services. And I wanted to give an example in regards to just kind of the time savings as well as staff savings for that. For us to put together a task order for a consultant, it takes us about a month with our on-call consultant, because we literally only need to put a scope together, send it out to the consultant. They're able to then provide a proposal and we can negotiate it from there. It takes about a month. If we were required, instead of using the on-call, to go out to the consultants every single time as a separate contract, that would usually take about 4 to 6 months, because you have to go through the whole process of advertising, getting in, anywhere from probably 5 to 10 different proposals, reviewing the proposals, then kind of reducing it down to the top 3, and then doing final negotiation. And just in rough numbers, just the amount of time that we save based upon the number of task orders we do a year, we literally save about 1 FT of time per year, just because of this method of contracting. Already kind of mentioned it. This helps us to augment our technical staff, and it gives us the ability to actually bring in technical abilities that we may not specifically have on our staff. So it allows us just to leverage our resources to get more work done even in less time. So next slide, Sam. Just a few more benefits wanted to go over, just to let you know how the on-call contracts have really benefited us. Starting in 2017, we averaged about 8 construction projects that we would award per year in Public Works. And 4 years later, in 2021, we awarded 17 construction projects. And as of right now, we have on our plan for 2022 to have 17 projects awarded. So within that 4-year time period, we've actually been able to double the amount of construction projects that we've been able to produce on an annual basis. In regards to additional help, or I would say with us help with our strategic planning program, these contracts also have been used by our group to do pre-design studies, which are integral to us putting together our 4 to 6 year detailed plan, and also really integrates well into our CIP process. This has allowed us to get better cost estimating earlier in projects, so that when we do put our CIP together, our capital improvement plan, we're able to have better cost estimates in there, which just allow better budgeting across the board for the county. And here's just a couple of examples. It also helps us to get ready and be positioned well to receive grants. And again, just over the last 4 years, it's not quite 4 years, 3.5 years or so, from a $6.8 million road fund investment, we've been able to actually do $18 million worth of road program work. And on a similar fashion, 30% of our fish passage projects have actually been funded through grants. From a kind of a socioeconomic perspective as well, these consultants that we have on board, we have 5 of them that are literally located in Thurston County, 2 in Tacoma and 3 in Seattle. That gives us a lot of flexibility, again, with the specialty items that we need sometimes. One other item to just mention, I know it's on pretty much everybody's mind, but this also puts us in a great position to be able to respond to any federal infrastructure funding that might be coming our way. With having consultants available, we can really leverage our internal resources, in order to be able to potentially even do more work by contracting and kind of turning into project managers. So again, that's a great benefit.
Hey, Rick, a time check, just to make sure that you go through all the slides and leave some room for the commissioners to ask some questions.
Okay, thank you, Romero. Go ahead to the next slide. Again, this is just a slide to give you an idea of the amount of work that we're actually doing with our contracts, about $9.3 million of work completed and in progress. Not quite, but about $2 million of task orders per year. Next slide, Sam. And then this gives you an idea in regards to the quantity. These task orders have supported 94 different projects and studies. And there's been 131 task orders that have been basically issued. Go ahead, Sam. This is a chart just to show you what you're going to be seeing. And actually, Sam, to speed up, go ahead to the next slide, if you will, because they're about the same. So this next slide, it gives the reason that we're actually kind of making this presentation to the board today. And that is we're at a point where we are going to need the board to authorize additional funding limits for 6 of our consultants in order for us to continue with the execution of our planned program. And just as a reminder to the board, when we first initiated these contracts, there was an indication that the board wanted us to really look at this in about 2-year chunks. And so we're now coming up on our 4th year, and it is time to go through another increase. So what you see here will be some verbiage that we're going to be asking you to give us the approval to move forward on an ASI and a resolution to increase the capacity on 6 of our contracts. Sam, go ahead to the next slide. I'm going to run through these real quickly. For each one of the different programs, I just wanted to point out that there's been a lot of different work that they've done on our fish passage program. For example, they helped with Hunter Point and the Latigo project, which are 2 really well-known projects. And that results in about 20 miles of restored access to creeks into wetlands. And you can see how it affects the actual just wildlife and nature itself. Next slide. On the Parks and Trails side, the consultants were able to really help us with some impact studies. And for example, some of the projects that we have going out at the parks, like the Deschutes Falls Viewpoint. It's also those studies and projects have helped us to, well, actually resulted in really expanding our park amenities, reducing maintenance costs. And then that 4th bullet point down there, I really kind of like, it's growth paying for growth through our impact fee. So we've really been able to leverage that.
Hey, excuse me, Rick.
Yes,
make
Scott.
sure that we give the board enough time for questions. Why don't we hold on this right now? And if they have specific questions about certain projects, we can certainly go into those. But I want to make sure we give the board time to ask any questions, because the meat of what we're asking for is in the previous slide or 2, that the table, the increases.
That,
So
Scott,
okay.
yeah, thank you. If you could go back to slide 8, Sam, and just go ahead and put it there.
Perfect.
So, yeah. So if there are any questions, we definitely would like to address them.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Scott. Okay, Commissioner Edwards, questions?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, sir.
Uh, I'm trying to figure out, this is something new above and beyond what we've already had in place for a while about going out for specialty contracts. Is that right?
Yes, Commissioner. This is something I will say at at this level. This is. We have had on-call contracts in the past, but they've typically have been with 2 or 3 consultants and maybe for 2 or 3 years. So yes, this was a large endeavor.
Okay. And how do we normally go out for bids for this type of activity? Is that kind of what we're coming to on this issue?
This is a streamlined contract approach that's very typical for use in private sector as well as in public sector. It really helps us to be able to get to our consultants in a timely fashion. Almost all consultant contracts are negotiated contracts, and this gives us the ability to be able to get to the consultants quickly and then be able to negotiate based upon the need of the project.
So everything that we expend money on, we would be going out for a contract on, even if we implement this new stuff.
Oh, are you speaking of construction contracts?
Yeah, whatever, any kind of contract.
Oh yeah. So most of these do lead to construction contracts, and depending upon the dollar value of those contracts, we'll either use our small works roster, or we'll go out and just do our normal bid process.
When are you looking for a decision on this?
We're hoping to get on the board's agenda as soon as possible. We were hoping that by the end of the month that we could get the approval to increase the limits on 6 of these contracts, so that we can continue on with our design program.
And I think an important piece to add to that too is all of these consultants that are on our on-call contract, we did acquire their services through a competitive solicitation process. And when we go to bid for construction, again, all that is competitive bid. Once these on-call contract, I believe it's a total of 6 years that we have for the on-calls, Rick, is that correct?
Correct.
Once we get through with that, then we will again go out to the community to look for more on-call rosters, because this on-call section will be through, and we'll move on to the next round of solicitation for on-calls.
You know, I like the concept of what's being proposed. I just don't understand why our other list of on-call folks, I mean, I don't know if it wasn't included, or why is this now coming up as something new that we've not heard of before?
Well, Commissioner, I'm not quite sure how to answer that,
Maybe I can help, Rick?
I'm sorry.
Yes, please, Ramiro.
Yes, Ramiro, please.
Hopefully I can address Commissioner Edwards' question. The board authorized in 2018 to go with a request of qualifications. And the result of that process, we selected 10 firms in which we embarked on contracts. Those contracts were the first 2 years, and as the staff stated, we have the option to extend those for an additional 4 years. We are already on that. So the request today is to extend the dollar amount on the existing contract with 6 firms. And that is the request that we have right now. Why not the other 4 firms? Because the other 4 firms, they're specializing, I believe, services, they have not reached the dollar amount is already within their contract. So there is not a need to ask the board to extend or increase the dollar amount of those contracts. That is really the difference between the 6 that you see today versus the 4. We still have financial capacity within the existing contracts to continue to use their expertise.
Okay,
That's correct.
so
Thank you.
okay, so it sounds to me like we're already doing business with them. We've expended our dollar amount, so we're going to increase the dollar amount. The time element doesn't change. Is that right then?
That is correct, sir.
So we're just bumping up from say 600 to 800 and 600 to 900,000.
Yeah.
I should say in thousands.
That's absolutely on point, sir. The time and the terms of the contract that we have with them does not change, other than just increasing the dollar amount, just to give us the flexibility to continue to use it.
Okay, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, like if the time element doesn't change, the dollar amount does. In 19, we must have set a dollar limit, I guess is what I'm hearing. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a dollar limit. And at that point, they were reached out, I think within 2 years, and they were authorized to increase at that time a little bit, the dollar amount. And this is the second request, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay. So sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Menser?
2 questions. One is, I think maybe I have a map that maybe
That's the map that's supposed to be on your Tuesday agenda. Saturday I was looking for. So-
I was trying to figure out that maybe this doesn't apply to this
No,
business.
so thank
Okay,
you.
very good. And then the only question I have is, Rick, you referenced CPED, and I know that I just met with some developers and about the use of consultants in that context, and we bill, or we can bill the applicant, but do we still need to have the capacity to basically pay the county and then we get reimbursed by the applicant? So it would still apply to these cap increases? Okay.
Yeah, and in fact, Commissioner, if I may, I have been working with Josh is to help us address the backlog that we have right now and just review on applications. Mainly on the single family applications, that's where the big bubble is. So Josh is just finalizing the contract with one of the three of those firms. They can help us to go through that process. So this cap may not address CPED. CPED has a different request, but the firm itself is what is those firms will allow us to expedite the process for CPED to use those consultants. This is the on call. I answer your question, kind of, sort of.
Yeah, I mean, you did. You went further, and I have questions about the further part, but it's really not relevant to this. I think I'm fine with this. I mean, if we're using a consultant to help with our backlog, is that something that appropriately the applicant should have to pay because we're backlogged?
No, and in fact, I have worked with Josh, and there's going to be a zero net impact to the applicant.
Okay. But
Financially.
there's other ones. I mean, when I met with these folks earlier this week, they were like, money's not an issue. You can choose the consultant, and you can slap us a bill for $200,000. We'll write you a check. Just, can we have the avenue to get the work done?
Yeah, for the larger developers, yeah, but
for the littler ones, they
little
shouldn't
no.
have to
So
pay.
the key of this approach is it will not be a financial impact, my understanding at this point, to the individuals who are processing a single family home. So that is the key, is since we are not utilizing internal staff, right? So that money can be applied to pay for the consultants. So it should be a net zero impact.
All right, well, that's the conversation for a different day.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good, I'm sure.
Thank you. And I had along the same questions that Commissioner Edwards had, and County Manager kind of broke it down. So I don't have any further questions. Thank you so much, Scott, and thank you so much, Rick, for this presentation. And so, County Manager, I'll hand it back to you for the next step.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the board will see an AIS coming your way, they will be requesting for you to increase the value of the existing contracts as you heard today. So we just want to give you enough time and the opportunity to answer questions when you see that item.
Thank you. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.